In this lecture, we are going to add a text input layout to our AppCompat EditText. The first thing we need to do is to add the design library to our project. I go to the File menu and I click on Project Structure. Now under Modules, I select App and then I go to the Dependencies section. I click on the plus sign, Library Dependency, and then I select the design library to add it to my project. And I click OK. Alright, I wait until Android Studio compiles my project and adds the design library to the project. The Gradle operations finished successfully and the design library was added to my project. Now inside my layout, above the AppCompat EditText, I'm going to define a text input layout. I type android.support.design.widget.textInputLayout. And my text input layout requires a height and a width. I set its width to match parent and its height to wrap content in the preview section. After height and width, I define an ID for my text input layout. @+ID/ I set its ID to, for example, username_text input layout. After the ID, I'm going to define a couple of margins. I type Android:\layout_margin top. And for its value, I enter 32 dp. I also type Android:\layout_margin right, as its margin from the right. For its value, I enter 32 dp again. I type Android:\layout_margin left, margin from the left, and I set its value to 32 dp. And Android:\layout_margin bottom, margin from the bottom, I set its value to 8 dp. Next, I close my text input layout completely. Now I have to place my AppCompat EditText inside my text input layout. I cut this part of code and then I paste it after the AppCompat EditText. Now I remove the layout margin attribute from my AppCompat EditText because I don't need it. Alright, that's it for our text input layout. So what we did was that we created a text input layout and we placed our AppCompat EditText inside the text input layout. I copied this part of code and I paste it down below. Actually, I want to have another text input layout and AppCompat EditText. Now I set the ID for my second text input layout to password underscore text input layout with the same values for margins. I also changed the ID for my second AppCompat EditText to @ID / password underscore text field. I also change its hint to password. Then I hit Alt and Enter, extract string resource, and OK. For its input type, I remove text and then I hit Ctrl and space, and from the list that appears, I select text password. So now we have two text input layouts and two AppCompat edit texts. The first AppCompat edit text is for the username and the second AppCompat edit text is for the password. Now inside my second text input layout, after the ID, I'm going to type Android : layout underscore below. This specifies the UI element under which we are placing our text input layout. My text input layout must be placed below my first text input layout. So here I enter the ID for the first one, @ID / username underscore text input layout. Now let's run our project once and see what happened. Alright, our application is running. You see that we have two AppCompat edit texts and two text input layouts. Note that by default, the focus is on the first AppCompat edit text, and as you can see, the hint for this text field has moved up with a beautiful and nice effect. Now I select my second AppCompat edit text. So you can see the effect of using text input layouts, which gives our work a beautiful and appealing look. As you know, we defined the input type for our first AppCompat edit text as text. I enter a text here, and for the password field, we set the input type for the AppCompat edit text as text password. You see that as we enter characters in the password field, they are displayed in the form of black bold dots. Now I stop the emulator. Now I want to set the focus on the second AppCompat edit text. After my second AppCompat edit text, I'm going to define request focus. This way. and I close request focus with slash. Okay, now let's run our project on the emulator. Alright, our application is running. You see that this time the focus is by default on the AppCompat EditText for password. So using request focus, we can set the focus on any of the AppCompat EditTexts that we have defined. I remove the request focus tag because I don't need it. I close the activity main layout and I open the main activity class. Now we want to learn about the methods for text input layout and AppCompat EditText. Inside the main activity, I'm going to define two objects from the AppCompat EditText class. Now inside the onCreate method, I'm going to get references for both of the objects. I type user equals, I cast it to AppCompat EditText, find view by ID, r.id.username underscore text field. And semicolon. Also for the next one, I cast it to AppCompat EditText, find view by ID, r.id.password underscore text field, and semicolon. Now I want to talk about the addTextChangedListener method. So I type user.addTextChangedListener. Inside the parentheses, we'll need to enter a text watcher. So I type new and I select text watcher from the list that appears. You see that the methods before text changed, on text changed, and after text changed were added to our class. In order to learn more about these methods and how they work, I'm going to add a code inside before text changed. So I type system.out.println and I pass it the s argument that has been received by the method. Now let's run the project on the emulator and learn more about the before text changed method. Okay, the application is running. I must also keep open the run window down here. I enter some characters inside the username AppCompat EditText. I enter the character U, and you see that nothing happens down here in the run window. Next, I enter D. You see that the character U was printed out. This means that the beforeTextChanged method was executed and the value for the S character is U. This time I enter E. You see that this time the character sequence UD was printed out. So you saw with the beforeTextChanged method that when you enter a character in the AppCompat EditText field, the characters preceding that are printed out, and you can use this S parameter in your projects. Alright, I stopped the emulator. This time, I'm going to cut the above code from the beforeTextChanged method and I'm going to paste it inside the onTextChanged method. As you can see, we have the S parameter here as well. I run the app again. Okay, my application was launched. I must also keep open the run window. Now I start to enter some characters. I enter the character U. You see that as soon as I entered the character, it was printed out in the run window. This means that the onTextChanged method was executed for me. So when the user enters any character in this text field, the onTextChanged method will be executed and print out the character and the ones preceding it. Therefore, you can use this method to get input text from the user. I stop the emulator and I remove the println statement. Now inside the afterTextChanged method, I enter system.out.println. And here I enter an arbitrary text, for example, after. Now let's run our project on the emulator. Okay, my application was launched. I also keep the run window open. Now inside the username text field, I enter the character A. You see that the afterTextChanged method was executed and the word after was printed in the run window. So when we enter a character inside our AppCompat EditText, the afterTextChanged method is executed. However, there's a difference between these two methods, that is onTextChanged and afterTextChanged. In the onTextChanged method, you can access the value of the S character sequence entered in the edit text and use it in your code. But in the afterTextChanged method, this is not the case. So we learned about the methods before TextChanged, onTextChanged, and afterTextChanged. Now I remove these methods completely. And now I want to talk about another method. I type user.setOnFocusChangeListener. Inside the parentheses, I need to pass an onFocusChangeListener argument. So I type new onFocusChangeListener. Now you see that the onFocusChange method was created for us. Inside the onFocusChange method, we have an input parameter of the Boolean type named hasFocus. Now let's see what this method does for us. I type system.out.println. Print for me the hasFocus parameter. Now let's run our project on the emulator. Okay, our application was launched, and as you can see, the word true was printed in the run window. This shows that the onFocusChange method was executed and the value for the hasFocus parameter is true. That's because by default the focus is on our username AppCompat EditText. Now if I focus on another text field, you see that the value of hasFocus changes to false. I change the focus back to my first text field, and the value of hasFocus is true again. And I focus on the second text field. The value of hasFocus is false. So using the setOnFocusChangeListener method and the value of hasFocus, we can determine whether the user has focus on our edit text and which edit text the user has focus on. So this method can be very useful. Okay, now I stop my emulator. And that's it for the setOnFocusChangeListener method. So I removed this method as well. So far we learned about the setOnFocusChangeListener and addTextChangedListener methods. Okay, Now I close the main activity class and I go to the layout folder and I open the activity main layout. Inside the relative layout and after the height attribute, I type Android:focusable. I set the value for this attribute to true. I also type Android:focusable in touch mode, and I set its value to true as well. Now I'm going to do something so that by default the focus is on neither of the edit texts. Let's run our project on the emulator. Alright, the application was launched, and as you can see, by default, neither of the edit texts has the focus. I focus on the first edit text and then on the second. Now I'm going to do some things so that the focus is eliminated completely, and neither of the edit text has focus, even if I click in the text field. To do this, I stop the emulator and I close the activity main layout. I go to the main activity class. Now inside the main activity class, I'm going to create an object from the relative layout class. I name the object relative layout. Now inside the onCreate method, I'm going to get the reference for this object. Relative layout equals, I use casting, find view by ID, r.id dot activity underscore main. Which means that our object will be connected to our activity main layout. Next, I type relative layout dot set onClick listener. Inside the parentheses, we must define an onClick listener. As usual, you can type new onClick listener. Each time that you select a part of the activity, the onClick method is executed. And you can enter your desired code inside this method. However, since I don't need it, I'm going to enter null inside the parentheses. Now let's run our project on the emulator. Alright, our application was launched on the emulator. I focus on my first edit text. Now on the second one. Now I click on an arbitrary point of the activity. As you can see, by clicking on a free point of the activity, the focus was removed from the edit text. So this easily enables us to get out of focus. And that's it for this lecture. In the next lecture, we are going to learn more about the features of AppCompat EditText.